Hey, welcome to the Better Leader podcast. This is episode 1. We are so honored that you are watching or listening wherever you're from. And hey, you're investing in your leadership. And we are all leaders. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And we can impact the lives around us for better as we grow in how we steward that influence. And so thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be interviewing my good friend, Jason Laird. He is a pastor of Sozo Church in San Francisco. It is a church plant. We're going to be talking about what it's like to be a brand new church and then get hit by a pandemic, leading through something like that. We're also going to talk about how to structure regular weekly conversations with people that you are leading. And so if you're in a position at work or in different places where you're having regular conversations and you're leading others, this is going to hopefully offer some really helpful insights into how you can structure those conversations and what they can look like. So thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy this podcast. Hope you learn, hope you grow. And by the way, feel free to comment in the comments below if you have questions or things that you think will be helpful to talk about in the future. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. Today, we have my friend, Pastor Jason Laird, and a little bit about Jason. Jason was on the exec team at 2 great mega churches, Healing Place and Gateway Church in Texas. He's traveled and spoke all over the world, but is loving this season leading Sozo Church in San Francisco. In fact, that's where Jason and I met when he first moved here about 3 years ago to plant this church. And so Jason has been church planting in a pandemic. I mean, church planting is hard without a pandemic.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear more about that. But today, let me introduce the topic. We're going to be talking about relational influence. So Jason is someone, I chose this topic because he's someone that I've seen over the years, always pouring into someone, always learning and growing with peers, and also having world-class leaders pouring into him. And Jason, first question is, why does relational influence matter?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love you so much. Thank you for just letting me be a part of the conversation. Just to see what God's doing in your life and through Brave Church is pretty inspiring. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. Relational influence. There's this statement that Pastor Dino Rizzo, which is my mentor, one of my mentors, he used to always tell me, he's like, hey, Jason, your network is your net worth, right? We've all heard that. And I don't think that I really understood that fully. I was just kind of putting into practice investing in relationships as this young leader, just because, really, to be honest, to be candid, just because Dino said, you need to invest in relationships. Just trust me, invest in relationships. But I didn't really understand how important that was until I became a first chair leader in different ministries within the organization where I needed people to accomplish the vision that God had given me. You know, people say all the time, without vision, people perish. Well, I think the converse is true as well. Without people, a vision perishes. So it doesn't matter how big your vision is, if you don't have people to accomplish that, whether that be through their gifts, their talents, their resources, it doesn't matter how grand your vision is, you'll never be able to accomplish it. So relational influence is, I don't have a working definition, but my knee-jerk reaction to this is it's this culmination of years. It's the sum total of years of investing in relationships strategically with a specific outcome. And the outcome is this. It's not that there's strings attached, but you just know that you cannot accomplish great things by yourself.
Yeah.
You need people to do it. And so it's just being intentional and strategic in investing in those relationships so that you can accomplish something great, because I believe that God's put something great in all of our hearts. We have to unearth that, but then we have to rally people as leaders. We have to rally people around that and accomplish it together. And so that's kind of my knee-jerk reaction definition. I don't know if it makes sense, but that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because in some ways, the idea of building into relationships, knowing that you're going to need help from others, can almost seem transactional, but at the same time, it's very humble because it's a recognition that you really can't accomplish the dreams God's put in your heart all on your own.
Yeah.
What has that been like, church planting during this season? And how's the network been?
Well, I'll tell you this. The craziest thing is there were 2 things that God spoke to me before we said yes to moving to San Francisco and planting. He said, I don't want you to ask one person to come, and I don't want you to ask one person for money. And I'm like, well, those are the 2 things that I have to have. And I really felt like it was sort of a challenge and a test from the Lord. And I think it was his way of saying to me, and I don't suggest that whenever I'm coaching other church planners. I don't say that at all.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of
Don't
my own.
ask for money.
Yeah.
Don't
I'm
ask
like,
anyone
no,
to come with
I'm like,
you.
ask everybody for money, ask everybody to come. But I really felt like the Lord from my personal journey was wanting to show me that, that he was behind this and that he was going to do this. It wasn't all on me, because I was feeling the burden and the pressure that, man, this is all on me. What if no one comes? What if no one gives? And I felt like the Lord said, I'm going to show you that my fingerprints are all over this. And so don't ask anybody to come and anyone to give. But what I found out through that process is that people started saying, yes, they wanted to come, not to me, but to God. They started just showing up. The interesting thing is that people move probably 30 people from all over, moved to be a part and to join the team. And then other people join the team without asking anyone. So kudos to God for doing that. And then we've been able to raise a significant amount of money to accomplish the vision. But what I found is that the reason why those people came and the reason why the people that gave was because for 17 years, I was investing in relationships, not knowing that we were going to church plant, not knowing that we were going to need a significant amount of money, not knowing we were going to need people to move from all over, because in parachuting in, it's kind of hard to meet people, and and so all those years of buying someone a coffee, taking time to invest in them and to add value to them, taking some kid that was a part of the youth ministry just along with me to go speak at some camp or something. All of those little small micro investments into people for 17 years, the ROI on that was that whenever the time came for us to step into a vision of where God was calling us, God had already been asking people to be a part of something by the investments that were being made in them. And I gotta be candid. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, for 17 years, I was doing just what Dino told me to do. I was putting in practice the principle of investing into relationships, not knowing that one day there would be an ROI and it would be people moving or giving to be a part of this. Wow. And so I can't really take credit for it. God gets all the glory, but maybe I should give all the credit to Dino, because he's the one that said, just do this and trust me. There will be a great payoff. If you just focus on adding value to people, one day they're going to add value to you. But it needs to be that just keep adding value to them, keep adding value, and then they'll be a part of the journey,
That's good. That's amazing. I didn't know that because so many people moved here to help you start a church in a city that is known to be one of the most challenging cities to even do ministry. And I didn't know that you hadn't even asked anyone. That's really cool.
Yeah, just shared vision, and said, I'm not going to ask you to be a part or ask you to give. I'm just going to ask you unapologetically to ask the Lord if he wants you to be a part. If he does, just be obedient to that. Say yes.
You know, that's an interesting dynamic, because we're all learning so much during this season, trying to get people on Zoom. Like, there's some battles that are just uphill to begin with, but it is interesting how we're really having to come back to, well, how good am I casting vision? Like, if nobody wants to be a part of what I'm doing, or if I can't, that whole thing of getting people to using our influence, right, to get people towards something that's good for them. But what are some other things over the years that you've caught from either Pastor Dino or other leaders, or that you've just learned and done intentionally to cultivate those relationships, even with no agenda? But you mentioned getting coffees, stuff like that. Are there any other things that you would say, hey, like, this will serve you well?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned from is actually from Pastor Robert Morris when we served at Gateway, and from Pastor Tom Lane, was something called relational oversight. The people that directly report to you, you should meet with them once a week, one-on-one, for 45 minutes to an hour. And for him, it's mostly managerial, right? But for Gateway Church, what they taught us is every week. So Gateway, when I was there, was probably 1,500 staff members.
Wow.
1,500 staff members. It's crazy. And every single person, from the very top to the very bottom, every person had a one-on-one every single week with their overseer. And part of that relational oversight meeting was that the managerial side of it was important, but that was the least important.
Yeah.
The most important thing was the relational aspect of that oversight meeting. And so what it looked like was really, and I've kind of broken down, I don't know if they would necessarily put in these 4 categories, but this is how I did it, is there were these 4 C's. The first one is care. And I'll break them down, but the first one is care. The second one is cover. The third one is confront. And the fourth one is communicate. And so the way that, and those are boxes in my mind that I would tick off with these people that I was bringing oversight to, And I did this for those within my sphere of leadership that were directly under me. But for years, I began to realize that I had some kind of format of this with the people that were leaders or people that I was bringing oversight to in a spiritual way. And so those four C's, the first one is cares. I just ask questions
Mm-hmm.
to that person about things that I know they care about. I ask them about what's God speaking to you. What's the biggest thing challenging you? Just things like that. And I would take notes on those things, write it down, because I need to communicate to them that I care about what you care about.
Yeah.
Not just your work, but what's happening in your life. Tell me about your marriage. Tell me about your kids, things like that. And so from the care piece, a lot of times out of that comes a place where I can bring counsel or I can bring comfort to that person in that particular area.
Mm.
The second one cover is this, is I would say, hey, what's something that I don't know that I need to know? Like, is there anything that I don't know that I need to know? Now that could be a place where it opens a door for them to share. Maybe there's some struggles with temptation, sin. Maybe there's some drama going on within the department or whatever. And I would just ask questions around, what do I need to know that I don't know? And not every time would they say something, but sometimes I'd have someone say, hey, I've slipped up in this area. Well, because they've now told me, I can cover
I forgot to wear my mask and I walked into Target and everybody was looking at me.
Yeah,
weird.
exactly. And so I can provide some cover for them in that area. And then the third one is, and I don't correct someone or confront someone every single week, but every time when I'd meet with someone, I would ask myself the question, is there something that this person has done that's been a pattern? Because if it's a pattern, it's a problem. Is there something this person's done that's bothered me or has, is affecting our department or whatever?
Yeah.
And I would ask that question, and I would make sure I wasn't keeping a long tally, because if you wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks to confront someone, and it's been a pattern, you're going to blow up on them. And so I would just ask myself that question, and then I would just have that confrontational moment. And the last one is communicate, which is let's talk about the managerial side. Let's talk about work. So if you see this, like the first three things are to add value, to develop them, to pastor them so that they will get better. And I just think that if you're doing that, if you're trying to be intentional with people and not just managing people, but you're investing into them and they're actually getting better, then they're going to be more loyal to you, more loyal to the vision. They're going to add greater value because they feel like you value them. The moment they don't feel like they're valued by you and that you're not adding value to them, they're not going to add value to the organization. And so
it's very relational.
Yeah.
I like that.
It sounds a little sterile because I have these boxes that I tick off, but that's just the way that my brain works.
Yeah.
It helps me to track along.
Yeah. It ensures that you hit those things, because it's so easy. I mean, especially during a busy season, to jump straight into work and not even, I like that you have those three things. They get you asking the right questions, because how easy is it to just kind of, be in a meeting, be in a check-in, and it's almost like, you're talking to you flash back to like talking to your mom on the way home from school. Like, how was school day? Oh, good. Like, how's marriage? Good. Like, but if you don't keep probing, then we don't get to that place. Cause it's almost like it's almost not in our nature to be vulnerable on a regular basis and to get into that. So I love that heart.
And one of the ways that it helps for me to make it relational is to be just straightforward with you, I try not to have those meetings in an office. Like if it's the opposite sex, you have some restrictions there where you need to probably be in an office and not just going on a little lunch date with the opposite sex. But for the most part, those that I can meet with like off-site, like that conversations like that organically over a lunch or at a game. I remember my oversight, he took me to a Texas Rangers game and it was like a 3-hour oversight meeting. and we talked at length about some of those things and we had fun and but I would say even, outside of just like that, adding value in a strategic way like that, I think nothing can replace just being at the table.
Yeah.
Like if you want to build influence with people, don't have them, come over for just a coffee or meet them at a coffee shop. That's cool. Yeah. Friends have coffee, family have dinner.
Last question. This is how we'll end. One thing that you would want to say to anyone that wants to be a better leader.
Oh man, the one thing, I think the one thing that's probably impacted my life, outside of like, obviously the obvious intimacy with Jesus, those things like that. I mean, everything that you do as a leader, if you want to be a better leader, you get to know Jesus better, and everything's going to overflow to that. So we know that intimacy with God determines capacity for God.
Yep.
But outside of that, I think the thing that has impacted my life on a daily basis is having clarity and vision. And this is as a family, as a church, as a leader. And the phrase that I tell myself almost every day is the clearer the vision, the fewer the options, the easier the decision. If you can get a clear vision of what God wants for your life in every single area, in the way that I just had a conversation with a leader the other day about What's your vision for your aging parents as they're getting older? How are you going to take care of them? Because what happens is as leaders in your home and church and whatever, you'll get to the place where you have to make a decision. And then if you don't have vision and you're in that place, now comes, it's emotionally charged. There's all these things and it just gets cloudy, the decisions you need to make. But if you already have a predetermined vision of what you want, a preferred future, not just yours, but like it says in Proverbs, prophetic vision. That's vision from God for your marriage, for your family, for your church, for your team. When you get that, then the options get fewer, the decision gets easier. And to me, that's probably the most important thing is I tell people all the time, you need to make sure that you have clearly defined what your vision is for every area that you can possibly imagine in your life. Get a vision for your morning. What does your morning look like? Master your morning. Get a vision for that. And then begin to make decisions based on that vision. And I'm telling you, there are no great secrets, only daily disciplines. And every day, if you're disciplined to take steps towards that vision in any area, then one day you'll look up and you'll be amazed at what God has done in your life. But it takes that discipline of being focused on it. So that would be the biggest thing I'd probably say outside of intimacy with God.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for being with us. Appreciate the time and the investment in our leadership culture. And let's get to that tea time.
Come on, man.
All right. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate Jason taking the time. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you can do. If you want to engage with us, we really appreciate it. It means the world.